Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be checking out a video I made in 2011 where I pretended to be a creationist. This video was intended to be improv comedy. However, people didn't really perceive it that way, so it'll be interesting to revisit and see how good I did. It turns out sometimes your acting can be too good and your jokes not clear enough, but let's check it out.
Hello YouTube, this is just a quick introduction to my new video series that I've decided to create in response to evolutionists on YouTube. This is entitled, Why Creationism is True. I believe that I have given more evidences as to why creationism is true over the years than I've seen of evolutionists saying that evolution is true.
Man, look at my majestic hair back then. Oh, how the mighty have fallen indeed. And this camera that I used was really bad, but the thing is, it was like the standard Mac camera, like, not MacBook, but like the standing, big, tall, gigantic Macs. I don't know why the camera on that was so bad. I mean, Macs don't have great cameras, honestly, but that was really, look at this quality. This is terrible, isn't it?
So now I believe I need to say something about it in a public sphere. I believe that I need to talk to the world about this because I've talked to my friends about it. I've had friends that were evolutionists and I've converted them all to Christianity. And
There should be your first sign, okay? Anybody who says that is obviously like lying, but people didn't get it. People thought I was serious.
I've even had theistic evolutionist friends and I've also converted them to Christianity.
Now, there is an underrated line if there ever was one. I've also had theistic evolutionist friends, and I converted them to Christianity. Beautiful, beautiful stuff, young me. You did really good. I have like 20 here. That's crazy.
And today I was in church, I'm always in church. I go to church every Sunday night. I go to church Wednesday nights, and while I was in church...
My last time in a church, for the record, was late 2016, and I never went, not once, by choice.
The preacher was talking about people not living up to their full potential and doing the most they can for the church. Well, I didn't think about it much at the time while I was there because I do the most I can. I give out money to the church, I help the kids, I teach Bible to the children at the church.
I have never once done any of these things. I don't know why the video quality gets better when I press my hotkey here and switch back, but it does seem to like get worse whenever we're actually watching it. Very odd.
I've taught all my friends about the Bible. I've explained time and time again about the Bible to everyone possible. I minister to people on the street, so I thought, well, I'm doing my job here. I'm doing a good job spreading the message of Jesus Christ and salvation to the world. But after church, I started thinking, what if I'm not doing all I can? Well, my solution is, I believe that I need to move to YouTube, and that's what I'm doing here now. Now,
I have moved to YouTube. I am here now. Actually, I should have done something a lot earlier, but hindsight 2020, maybe I wasn't good enough to do this then, so not a major loss. I did 2 of these videos, actually. We probably will watch the second one at some point.
it's been a long path. I got saved and became a Christian when I was 13 years old.
I have never been a Christian. I have always been an atheist.
And ever since then, it's just been a fight because so many people are against true Christianity. They don't know what it is, they don't know what it means, they don't know anything about it. So it's been me against the world, more or less, just trying to keep the beliefs and values of Christianity solid and not giving into the world and the evolutionists and the people who believe in the Big Bang and all of that nonsense, because that's what it is, it's just nonsense.
I had a really good grasp of like the Christian mindset about like, the whole martyr complex. They have the whole persecution complex where they think, despite being the most privileged group of people in society, they are being discriminated against by the world. Awesome stuff.
So without further ado, let me go right into it, and here's what I'm going to argue today. Today I'm going to argue that theistic evolution is false. My first argument regarding theistic evolution is that, first of all, it relies on evolution. Evolution is not compatible with Christianity. Before I actually get into the Christianity aspect, let me get into the...
Fun fact, I do think evolution is compatible with Christianity if your Christianity is less literalist, at least as it regards, let's say, Genesis, for example, which obviously Genesis is intended to be parables. It's just a common origin story of a people. But yeah, you can be a scientific person and still be a Christian. Let's be clear on that. But it was a funny thing to say, gotta say.
The evolution aspect. Evolution is not true. It can be proven false really easily. For instance, there are no transitional fossils. The end. This is undisputable.
Preach, brother, preach. I actually still hear this argument from creationists sometimes, like, where are the missing links? Where are the fossils that show transitions between species? And we actually have like a ton of them, so that's kind of funny that people still use that argument. But I'd heard that one recently when I made this video a long time ago. Notice how little has changed. We got in the background over here, we got a guitar. Got a guitar over here. We got a giant TV up there. You can't see it, but this TV is gargantuan. I mean, literally like 75 inches. So not much has changed. I'm a very consistent person. I don't have a recliner anymore. I need to fix that.
There are no transitional fossils in the fossil record. Never have been, never will be. They just don't exist. We've had things like Archaeopteryx, which have been claimed to be transitional fossils, but come on, look at it. It's a bird. It's not a transitional form. It's a bird. It's not a dinosaur bird. It's not a bird dinosaur. It's a bird. That's what.
So, and I did a video recently about the Creation Museum and what that was like. It's terrible. And at the very end, I have like a slideshow of some pictures I took back then, and one of them shows Archaeopteryx looking like a giant pigeon. And if you know anything about how science works, or how these sorts of reconstructions work, that one is inaccurate. Archaeopteryx was more dinosaur than bird, you could say, but it is a good example of a transitional fossil. And so I definitely think, like, when I recorded this, the Creation Museum thing was still on my mind, even though this was like over a year later.
What it is. Others, like Neanderthal man, big deal. It's a man, you know? All these things they have in museums are just plain false if you look at them from.
Here's a fun thing I learned recently. So I was talking to my mom about how the human genome contains something like 30% of the Neanderthal, genome altogether. Like about 30% across humanity is represented. You got 30% across the whole of humanity, Neanderthal genome. In most people, it's not very high at all. It's somewhere between 1 and 4%, and like it seems like the further east you go, the more Neanderthal is in there. Like my Chinese friend, she did a genetics test and she had something like, I may be mistaken, but I think it was like 4% Neanderthal DNA, and I've done a genetics test and I have about 2%. So it is there. It's well represented. But my mom, she thinks that it was the giants from the Bible, the Nephilim, the fallen angels who bred with humans. And it's like, wait a second. Didn't they all get wiped out in the flood, and then their descendants get wiped out in like Moab? Pretty sure that's supposed to have happened there. Why would we have 30% of the Neanderthal genome represented in humanity if that were the case?
A scientific viewpoint. If you just look at the evidence, you'll see that they are not really what they're claimed to be. All these supposed transitions of man to ape or whatever, they're just not true. If you look at them, you can see that they're just humans who had problems, like, there are little people, there are big people. People come in all shapes and sizes. Why should the genetic deformities of a group
Most body positive Christian
of people be supporting evolution? That doesn't make any sense, but that's what the evolutionists are trying to do. Never, ever.
Ooh, those evolutionists. I love this so much. Like, this was so much fun to do. Like, and it was so random how it happened too. Like, I mean, one day we'd gotten back from somewhere, my parents and I forget where we went because it's, 13 years ago now? But we'd gotten back from somewhere and I just sat down and just started recording. And this is what came out. This was my first take, just total, just bullshitted my way through it really nicely. And this is what I got. So I am a good actor, apparently.
Never has evolution been observed in any. No, just not at all. It's unobservable. It's not science. And let me go back to Archaeopteryx. This is the one that they claim big time. This is the first. This is the best. Well, if you go to the Creation Museum, as I have...
Yeah, see, I was thinking about the Creation Museum. I know myself very well, even if it was myself a long time ago.
And if you go and look, what they've got there, they've got it as it appears to be, and from the fossils. From the fossils, it appears to be a bird. That's what it appears to be.
The hand movements haven't changed much over the years, have they?
It's got all the fossil markings of an average bird. It is not at all like a dinosaur. That's the biggest one, I believe. That's the biggest proof against evolution, because evolutionists hold this one up as the gold standard for transitional fossils. But it's no such thing. In fact, I would argue that there is no such thing as transitional fossils. They just do not exist.
That's kind of like what the Creation Museum does. They look at all the evidence and say, well, no, that's not really evidence for that. I mean, people who are anti-evolution, when they do see the evidence, they just say, well, that's not real, that's not true. And that's an interesting way of debating, like, oh, well, that just can't be true because I don't believe it. But that is just such a really common like form of argumentation you get. And I don't know if Archaeopteryx is like the gold standard. I guess it might be the gold standard of like the bird dinosaur transitions, but like what would be the gold standard? Maybe like Homo erectus, Homo habilis, Australopithecus. It's not Australopithecus, it's Australopithecus, something like that. Plenty of transitional fossils. I'm not sure what you would call the best one, actually, but there are some good ones out there.
Secondly, I'd like to focus on the Bible for you now. If you are a creationist and you believe in the Bible, how can you believe that evolution happened? In the Bible it says that in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. He did not create a single-celled organism which then proceeded to jump out of the mud and turn into a fish or turn into a fish with legs or whatever. It doesn't.
Tiktaalik, our great, 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 great to infinity ancestor. I mean, did we come from Tiktaalik? Well, probably not. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know if that's where our genetic line leads specifically, but Tiktaalik is another great example of a transitional fossil. If you've never seen Tiktaalik, that kind of became like the centerpiece of the case against intelligent design in the mid-2000s. You see, I'm going to explain this. You don't have to sit through it. You can just skip this if you want to, but there was this ruling in the late 80s by the Supreme Court that said you couldn't teach creation science in schools because it was religion. At the time, some people were writing a creation science book called Of Pandas and People. This book was edited to be about intelligent design, which was their new term for creationism. And it was put in some schools in Dover, Pennsylvania in the early 2000s by a radical activist Christian school board. Evolution was replaced. And just a nasty scenario. If you want to learn more about that, PBS did a great documentary about it called Evolution or Intelligent Design on Trial. So check that out. And in that case, there were some amusing things. Like one thing was they found out the editing was done very poorly. So there were some instances of cut-design proponentsists in there where they had tried to replace creation scientists with intelligent design proponents and merge them into cut-design proponentsists. And you could see, like, through the original manuscripts how it changed from creation science to intelligent design. So they got caught red-handed, and the federal judge put in place by George W. Bush, who was himself a Christian and a Republican, ruled that intelligent design could not be taught in schools, and that ended the practice in America. So, intelligent design lost big, and one of the reasons they lost is because recently the Tiktaalik had been unveiled, and they used Tiktaalik in that court case, if I'm not mistaken, as an example of a transitional fossil that shows an in-between state of species, because it was sort of like an amphibian, I guess you could say. It was sort of like a mix between fish and amphibian, if I'm not mistaken. And great example of a transitional fossil. You can whip that one out whenever you feel like it.
It doesn't say that it turned into a monkey and then the monkey turned into us. That didn't happen. God created us. God created us. The end. There is no evolution to it. God just created us. He created us out of the dust of the ground. He created woman out of our rib. He did not create us to evolve. He did not create species to evolve. He did not make it that way. There is no evolution. We came from the Garden of Eden. If you don't take the Bible literally, then this probably doesn't make any sense to you.
Oh man, I'm really cooking now. I love how like I'm just like going straight into like hardcore like, oh, I'm so angry about this mode. I was really good at this stuff.
But if you don't, how can you take anything in the Bible literally? How can you believe that Jesus died for your sins if you can't believe what the Bible says about the beginning, which says that God created us as we are?
Okay, to nitpick myself again, I just want to say, to any Christians listening, I think you can think that Genesis is just metaphor and the Jesus thing is literal. You can think that. That's perfectly fine. Now, I would think that you shouldn't do that because, I mean, if you're going to be a Christian, at least accept evolution. But I would say just don't be a Christian. There's no need for it, really.
Not as slime or goo and made us jump out of a primordial soup or whatever you want to call it. It's just... It's incompatible with what we believe. It's very incompatible. It just makes no sense at all in the context of Christianity. It makes no sense at all in the context of reality. Evolution is a fraud.
You know, it makes a lot of sense in the context of reality. Talking donkeys and dead people coming back to life after 3 days. Fantastic stuff. I mean, I nailed it, let's be honest. It's great, but like, it's just so funny how, like, I've heard these arguments so many times by the time I was 20 that I had this much knowledge to just throw out there about what these people believe. It's really incredible. Like, just how did I know that much about this stuff when I was 20? I feel like we underestimate our younger selves quite a lot sometimes. I'm definitely guilty of that.
The end. There is no way it's true. So theistic evolution is a bigger problem than normal evolution because it's got creationists believing it now. Creationists believing in evolution. That is bad for us. That's bad for everyone. That's bad for creationism. That's bad for Christianity. Because if you don't believe what the Bible says, and you teach that, no, don't worry about that part didn't happen. We came from apes. We came from monkeys. We came from sea urchins. We came from whatever you want to say we came from.
We came from that train noise in the background. That's kind of interesting. Like, so I still stay in that neighborhood sometimes. Like when I'm here with like the family, you know, helping out. My dad's had a lot of health problems recently, heart attack, blood clots. He's about to have surgery on his knee, so I've just been here helping for a while. And I also ran out of money, so that sucks. But I'll be getting that back, so don't worry about me. But I am in that neighborhood again, not that same house. I'm actually closer to the train tracks now, so I don't know if y'all been able to hear any like trains in the background of these videos, but like they do go by and they are loud. Although I'm kind of surprised how loud it is in that video, because like even though I'm closer to the tracks now, it's not nearly as loud in my opinion.
If you teach that to your children, what are they going to believe? They're going to be like, well, how do we know that the Bible is true then? If it says this and it didn't happen like this, how are we supposed to believe it then? So the problem is that,
Of course, that is the creationist problem with science, that it does seem like the more a person knows about science, the less likely they are to be religion. I think there's a reason for that. Once you know how science works, religion seems a lot less necessary and a lot less likely.
evolutionists have gotten their nonsense into textbooks in schools to teach our children, people too young to make their own decisions, children, they are trying to teach the children that we evolved from lower forms of life so that they do not believe
Our children, I don't have any children, by the way.
we came from God, as the Bible says. The evolutionists are leading our children to hell. They're leading a whole generation to hell. We need to stop this immediately. There's got to be something the church can do to rise up and stop this nonsense. We must stop teaching evolution in schools. We must stop accepting that evolution could be compatible with creationism, because it's not. It's not compatible with our beliefs at all. If anything, you need to look at answers in Genesis.
You know, I really miss that shirt. That was an awesome shirt. Long sleeve, grungy looking. I don't know what happened to it. It was brown and it's gone forever. But like, I really liked that shirt. I should get another one like that probably.
Need to look at other websites like them that do what they do. They have the truth. They have the truth. They have researched it. They have scientists. They have PhDs. They have everything any other institute has. They have everything that the scientific community claims to have, these big fancy degrees. They have all of that. But they see the truth. They see the Bible as it is, and they say, this is how it happened because this is what it says in the Bible. Things did not evolve. Maybe things vary within their own species. Like, of course, there are different types of horses, there are different types of dogs, but that's not evolution at all. That's very...
Microevolution is one thing creationists will say exists, but what they don't seem to understand is that like if you get enough small changes in a species, that results in big changes overall. I mean, I think dogs are a great example of this, honestly. Like, look at how different a Chihuahua is from a wolf. You can imagine given another 100,000 years. I mean, we've only had domesticated dogs for what, like 10,000 years, something like that? So if you give a Chihuahua 100,000 years on its own in the wild to evolve, if they don't all die out, they're going to look very different than they do now. They're going to be very different than they are now. They're still going to probably look like canines, I imagine. But they'll be very different than they are now, and they might become genetically incompatible with wolves and maybe even other dogs. Maybe not after 100,000, maybe like 200,000, 300,000, but like enough small changes over time add up into bigger changes. So microevolution leads to macroevolution, but creationists don't seem to grasp this.
Variation. There is a difference. There's a difference between variation and evolution. Variation is not evolution. Variation is what dogs do. It's what horses do. It's what happened after the ark, after the flood of Noah. It's what happened afterwards. It never happened before. It didn't happen then. It there's no evidence that anything ever evolved before then, anything evolved after then. There's no evidence for it. After the flood, things just varied. The animals, there probably weren't that many animals on the ship in the first place, on the ark. There weren't that many animals, I'd say, that afterwards they just varied in how they looked and how they acted and how they behaved. And that's how you have the diversity of all the species on Earth today. But that's not evolution. That doesn't have anything to do with evolution.
This is awesome. I love this so much. That's so fun. You know, I was trying to troll like creationists into like agreeing with me and being like, "Yeah, preach it, brother." And then just like getting more and more ridiculous as it went on. But the only people these videos attracted were atheists. So I kind of trolled my own people. I apologize if you're one of those people. I mean, this only got like 2,000 views, but I suppose there is a chance. So I apologize, but it was a good time.
And you're kidding yourself if you think it does. So this is getting a bit long, but I think I've made my point here significantly enough as
I think this is getting a bit, the video is 9 minutes long. Getting a bit long. So this one is 20 minutes. I just finished a video earlier that is about 40 minutes. I've done a bunch of them over 40 minutes. I mean, imagine how I would react to that if you could take me from then and put me now and just like, you know, have this version see that and be like, oh my God.
to why theistic evolution is wrong, and I will be touching on this again later, but I believe that now I need to focus on other things, like, first of all, proving that the Bible is true above all. I will focus on doing away with this evolutionist nonsense and this Big Bang nonsense later on. But now I believe I've done all I need to do about theistic evolution.
So the next video that I did in the series, if this does well, if you like this, if people watch this for some reason or another, I will do a video on the second one. I may do that anyway, but I'll if you like it, I'll probably do it, but may do it anyway. So there's a second one, but the second one's a little bit different because it's about conversion stories. It's stories of the people I've converted to Christianity, and I name drop people who were at the time real life friends. One of them is a real like bastard, so I don't really have much to say about him. The other one's still good, but I claimed them as conversion stories, which is kind of funny. So we'll see what happens with that. I don't know if I'm going to do anything about that. We'll see. It's kind of amusing, I guess. And I look a little bit different in it too. I got like shorter hair, I think, and a better beard, and I think like the quality is better for some reason. But yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this video because when I made this, I had a lot of fun making it, and I love doing that sort of thing, like pretending to be a fundamentalist or whatever. I've got great preacher voices. I've got great stuff. So we may do more of this at some point, and that would be really cool. But thank you for watching if you watched this far, and I hope you have a good one.